Clock ticks backward, time unwinds, a second chance but left behind. Loved ones fade in yesterday. Read old life, but price to pay. Found a key that turns the hourglass. Past becomes my only path. First step back, I see her smile. Before the fight, before the trial, temptation whispers, start again. Fix the words that cause the pain, but each step back, the present dies. A ghost in time with tearful eyes. Time machine takes me away, leaving love in yesterday. Read old life, but all alone. Memories fade, but heart still moans. Can't go forward, can't go home.
The internet is not being my friend right now. Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone, to today's show. Excited about it. We're going to be talking about the famous gangster, John Dillinger, and his exploits through America and his little gangs that he did. Before we start, that song that was playing and stopped, it's a song that a good friend of mine, Bo, wrote and is on his channel. So please make sure you go give him a like and a subscribe. Today we're going to be playing a couple of his songs throughout the day. So thank you so much, Bo, for allowing me to play your music. And we're going to go ahead and dive right on in. So today is a story about John Herbert Dillinger. He was born on June 22nd, 1903, and he passed away on July 22nd, 1934. He was 31 years and 1 month old. When he was young, he lived with his parents. His mother passed away when he was when he was 4 years old, and his sister took care of him until his father remarried. When he was a young man, he enlisted into the United States Navy. He was stationed on the USS Utah that was in Boston, and he deserted the Navy and was dishonorably discharged. The first crime that he committed that he got jail time for was he mugged a grocery store worker when he was only 21 years old. He was an American gangster during the Great Depression. He was the leader of the Dillinger gang. The papers called him a Robin Hood type of figure. He had several imprisonments throughout his life, and he actually had 2 escapes. He was only charged for homicide 1 time, but he was never convicted of homicide. Just 1 moment. I'm so sorry. My dog is barking. While I take care of that, why don't we go ahead and listen to Real History give us a little bit of background on John Dillinger. If it will play. YouTube is not liking me today. It's not wanting to play. So I'm going to try this again in a different window. I am so sorry. Not believe it is wanting to act this way. Of course. Okay. So I am actually going to stop that. And I'm glad I'm working on a different screen for now. In this video, we're going to be referring back to quite a bit today. It's by Real History. So make sure that you go give them a like and a sub as well. And there is a link in the chat.
This is John Dillinger, the greatest bank robber of all time. Within a few months of the start of the American Great Depression of the 1930s, this small-time crook would become public enemy number one. He was even more famous than Al Capone and Bonnie and Clyde. John Dillinger was born in 1903. He lost his mother at a very early age and was raised with iron discipline by his father. After a troubled adolescence, he enlisted in the Navy, but later deserted. In 2003, the FBI declassifies its secret files on John Dillinger, and the writer Byron Burroughs uses this new information to tell the true story in his book, Public Enemies, on which Michael Mann's film script is based.
John Dillinger was, kind of the quintessential Depression-era bank robber. He was a nobody from nowhere. One Saturday night when he was a kid, I want to say he was 21, unemployed, he mugged the grocer in his hometown outside Indianapolis, Indiana. And he got sent to prison, and for a good long time, for something in the order of 10 years, as I recall. And he did hard time. And in prison, he met bank robbers.
I am so sorry. All right. So what happened and led him up to the prison and led them up to the prison and what his imprisonment meant. Okay. In his early life, he was the youngest of two to his mother and father. He did have an older sister. And his mother passed away when he was 4 years old. When his mother passed away, his older sister married, and she took care of John until John's father remarried in 1912. Now, John's father was very, very harsh. He was very, very firm. He was a spare the rod, spoil the child type of father. His remarriage gave John three half siblings. John was always unruly as a teenager, and he was frequently in trouble for fighting and bullying. Because of this, his father thought that living in the city of Indianapolis was what was causing that. So he moved them to the more rural Mooresville, Indiana. That move didn't change John at all. Instead, his troubles ended up forcing him to join the Navy, and he was on the USS Utah. And he, when they were in Port and Boston, he deserted, and then he was dishonorably discharged. After he deserted and went back to Indiana, he met and married Beryl Ethel Hoyvis. And then he also planned a grocery store robbery with his friend Ed Singleton. They hit the victim over the head and stole $50. And they were caught. John's father truly thought he was working with the DA and was going to get John, just like probation. So he convinced John to talk to the police without an attorney and confess to everything. He thought he would get a light sentence if he did that. Well, that was not the case. John was sentenced to 10 to 20 years in prison. En route to the prison after conviction, he did try to escape off of the bus, but they caught him within a few minutes. That is one of his escapes. Now, his friend Ed, he pled not guilty, and he got 12 to 14 years. I'm unsure of how many years he actually did serve, but Ed eventually passed away when he got drunk and passed out on train tracks in 1937. Now, this jail time for John, it really affected John in a lot of ways and shaped him into who he became. So we're going to listen to some more about this and his Kansas City massacre.
Crooks. It was a school for crime. And when he came out, he not only wanted to be a bank robber, but, and this is one of the things that distinguishes Dillinger from others, he wanted to rob banks with a specific goal in mind, and that was to raise enough money that he could buy guns to smuggle back into prison to get his friends out.
In 1933, when Dillinger's exploits as a gangster are becoming a legend, America is in the depths of the Great Depression. American industrial production has fallen 50% since 1929. 13 million Americans are unemployed. In 1933, when Roosevelt becomes president of the United States, 25% of the working population is unemployed. 2 million people are homeless. Hunger marches multiply. Millions of people demonstrate in the streets of the largest cities. Strikes break out across the country.
This was truly a terrible time in America. The Great Depression. People were starving to death. It was terrible. But it was also a great time for crime and organized crime, to be specifically. And so we're going to be going through this, and we're going to be, covering different gangsters from this era once a week. So I'm excited about that, and I hope you guys are too. Let me know of any gangsters, mobsters you would like for me to cover. in the comments section, and I totally appreciate it. Get back to the
It was a time where many, if not most, of Americans had lost their jobs or were losing them, had lost income, and they blamed the bank. And John Dillinger, who wasn't hurting them, seemed like a perfectly harmless, charming, smiling fella who was going after the banks.
And that's what people wanted back during that time. They blamed the banks for the stock market crash and everything. Totally crazy that people liked the gangsters. They loved them. They wanted more of them. That's why we had so many.
He became, not only an anti-hero, but a hero to a whole generation of Americans.
The story of the bank robber John Dillinger is intimately linked with that of John Edgar Hoover, the longest-serving head of the FBI.
And he was a peach of a guy, too. As we go through our gangsters, we'll learn more and more about Mr. Hoover.
Hoover will use the hunt for Dillinger to consolidate his power, which will last for more than 50 years.
The war on crime, 18 short months. At the beginning, J. Edgar Hoover was a nobody. If you're living in Iowa, if you're living in Florida, if you're living in Los Angeles, you've never heard the name J. Edgar Hoover. 18 months later, J. Edgar Hoover is a media star. He is a household name. The genesis of J. Edgar Hoover's fame, the genesis of his power, the birth of the modern FBI is all during this 18 months. So while you may say John Dillinger was not a national menace, clearly there was significance, national significance, to this war on crime period. The action during the Great Crime Wave, during the book, during the movie, took place on the Great Plains of America, which is, somewhat like the Russian steppe, I suppose, which basically is right down the middle of America, from the Rockies to the Mississippi River. That was really where poverty had struck the worst. I mean, you've seen the Grapes of Wrath. It seemed like the whole state of Oklahoma was getting in cars and going to California.
And sit by my side if you love me. Do not hasten to bid me adieu. Just remember the Red River Valley, 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 and the cowboy who love you so true.
So the poverty there was the worst. But also it was immensely attractive to criminals, and especially bank robbers. Because remember, almost anyone can rob a bank. The challenge is always getting away. Bank robbers want a road that goes 200 miles and they can drive flat out 90 miles an hour and get away fast. So the combination of the poverty and I think the geography is really what made the Great Plains kind of the premier battlefield of this era.
Okay. During this time, John was incarcerated from 1924 to 1933. While he was in jail, in prison, he became friends with other bank robbers, Harry Pierpont, Charles Mackley, Russell Clark, and Homer Van Meter. You will hear these names again throughout today's show. They were really, really great friends and trusted friends of John. Uh, John also studied Herman Lamb's bank robbing system and the way he robbed banks while he was in prison, so he could learn how to rob banks. He studied how to do this. So, and after 9.5 years, John's father, who felt terrible about John being in prison for so long, finally got petitioned and got 188 signatures to get John released on parole at 9.5 years, after serving 9.5 years. As soon as he got out of prison, he started bank robbing with his friends. On June 21st of 1933, he stole $10,000 from New Carlisle, Ohio. In August 14th, he and his friends also robbed a bank in Bluffton, Ohio. He got captured and escaped again. Now, before he got captured, he had already planned a prison break just in case he got captured. He got his friends' guns prior to breaking him out so that they could. And 4 days after John was captured, he escaped with his friends. And his friends became known as the very first Dillinger gang. We have Harry Pete Pierpont, Russell Clark, Charles Mackley, Ed Schaus, Harry Copeland, and John Red Hamilton. You'll hear some of these names again. What they did is they impersonated Indiana State police officers, and they went to the police station to get them out. And the sheriff was like, "We do not believe you are real police officers." And so they killed the sheriff. And then they grabbed John and they escaped back to, where they were, back to Ohio. The friends that did this were Harry, Russell, and Charles. While after this escape and was hanging out with this particular group of friends, this gang, they robbed 12 more banks. And during this, John met and began to courting Billy Fischetti in October of 1933. Upon his demise, she was offered money upon John's death and wrote a memoir for the Chicago Herald and Herald Examiner in August of 1934. And you would think, why would a woman date a man like this? Well, this was during the Depression. So let's listen to what real history says about that time period and why women were drawn to men like this.
We forget this was barely 75 years ago. Frank Sinatra was an 18-year-old singing songs. Marlon Brando was a kid. Ronald Reagan was already broadcasting on radio. In terms of the 20th century, it was yesterday. The war and crime that we discussed today really began with an event in June 1933 called the Kansas City Massacre. In this case, a gentleman named Frank Nash, sometimes known as Jelly Nash, and a couple of FBI agents had arrested him down in Arkansas and were taking him back to Leavenworth Prison in Kansas City via the train station in Kansas City. What happened when the FBI took Frank Nash off the train in Kansas City, and they were joined by other FBI agents and Kansas City cops. It didn't matter. Several unknown assassins opened up with.
Oops, I guess we didn't watch the. I skipped right over the Kansas City Massacre. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch all of the Kansas City Massacre and the Women of the Depression together. I'm going to speed it up a little bit. I usually listen to things on 1.5 or 2.0, mostly 2.0 because my brain works that way. But I'm going to speed this up to 1.5. I've had it on 1.25 this whole time. So, or no, I didn't. I had it on normal speed. I'm speeding it up to 1.5. If it's too fast, let me know.
Thompson guns killed, I believe, I want to say 6 of the law enforcement men, including an FBI man and including Frank Nash. It was this event, the Kansas City Massacre, that led the Attorney General and J. Edgar Hoover to declare America's first ever war on crime. They were going to go after the gangsters, they were going to go after the bank robbers, and they were going to bring them down. And of course, it became a much bloodier, much more complicated war than I think they had anticipated. Right in the wake of the Kansas City Massacre, Dillinger was released from prison in May 1933, and he immediately went to robbing banks.
At FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C., J. Edgar Hoover becomes deeply concerned about these repeated bank robberies and the inability of the local police to stop them.
But really, the year and the others were at large was not the beginning of a crime wave. It was the end of a crime wave that began in the mid 1920s, which was largely the result of technology outstripping the legal system. Two things in particular. I mentioned the new V8 engine, which an awful lot of criminals could get their hands on when lawmen, local law enforcement, and also the introduction after World War I of the Thompson submachine gun, which took firepower from one-shot pistols to 1,000 shots. Wasn't going to have it. He was going to have a Model A and a bird gun. And a bunch of sharp bank robbers out from Chicago with V8 engines and Thompson submachine guns, they could practically rob.
Thank you, Barb. As soon as this is over, I'll go ahead and share those pictures. That is awesome.
Of the whole state of Nebraska.
Meanwhile, at the FBI, Hoover takes action, training his agents to fight the gangsters with these new weapons.
One of the other things that made robbing banks in the early 1930s relatively easy was how fragmented American law enforcement was. By and large, if you robbed a bank in County A and you managed to escape across the county line, certainly across the state line, those authorities in the county and the state couldn't come after you. They could call ahead to someone and say, oh, by the way, would you mind picking up a criminal for us? That didn't happen too often. What's important to understand, and what's seldom understood, is how incredibly compacted all these events were. The very month that the war on crime started, the month of the Kansas City Massacre, was the same month that John Dillinger robbed his first drugstore and his first bank. So his emergence directly paralleled that of this new federal war on crime when the feds were out there wanting to take people down. And the whole rise and fall of Bonnie and Clyde, of John Dillinger, Pretty Boy Floyd, was all in this 2-year period, 1933 to into 34, and it really formally ended in January 1935. This did not stretch out over 5 years or 10 years. This was all inside 18 to 24 months. There was an awful lot going on just about every single day. One of the things that made Dillinger such an appealing figure was not just that he robbed banks, but that he escaped from jail. And he did it twice. The first time was he was arrested while visiting a girlfriend in Dayton, Ohio in September 1933, at which point his gang of buddies, they came and broke him out of jail, murdering the sheriff, I should say. And that's really what started once Dillinger united with his group of prison pals that he'd gotten out, that really started the first reign of the first Dillinger gang. It's amazing to think about this. The FBI had no powers of arrest. If you or a bank robber and I'm an FBI man, I can't arrest you. I have to call a sheriff to arrest you. Worse, I can't carry a gun. They had no authority to carry guns. They were babes in the woods who unfortunately would only learn how to fight crime after one too many funerals. And really what happened in 33 and 34 was that the federal government, in the person of J. Edgar Hoover and the FBI, finally got involved.
I will say John Dillinger and J. Edgar Hoover definitely had a lot to do with the way the FBI, how the FBI came about. Also in the way that they investigate crimes, especially ones that spanned across years and states. And back then there was no interstate working, and because of John Dillinger and J. Edgar Hoover, they now had it going.
My name is Richard Hack, and I wrote Puppet Master, The Secret Life of J. Edgar Hoover. It was a time when there was no central organization of anything in this country. There were certainly no computers. There was no central filing system. There was no fingerprinting that was kept on an organized basis. There was not even a reporting of criminals at large between one city to the next. Because at the time, the Bureau of Investigation was extremely corrupt. It didn't take much to become an agent. In fact, they would pay people $1 a year, give them access to stationery, and name them agents. And they could do what they basically wanted in the name of the federal government.
In 1924, President Calvin Coolidge decides that the time has come to root out corruption in the American administration and clean up the Justice Department and its Bureau of Investigation.
And the new Attorney General, Harlan Stone, decided to clean up the Bureau of Investigation, and he turned to J. Edgar Hoover, this young man, still in his 20s, saying, "Can you do this job?"
J. Edgar Hoover was so young when he started with John Dillinger, and the changes that he implemented and did. He came up with the G-Men. You will hear about the G-Men. He came up with the whole states working together. He just did so much, and he was so young when he started. Too bad he was corrupt and evil himself, but yeah, craziness. All right, we're going to finish up the FBI, and we've only got a few more minutes left of it. And then I'm going to share the pictures that Barb sent me. They're pretty cool pictures. They're from a museum in Indiana, Beltronic. They have the a display set up of him in it. So I think that's pretty cool. Honey, I think we need a road trip soon. Oh, and speaking of which, let me go ahead and do my grifting part while we're paused here. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to today's video. If you want to support my channel, I have a Cash App. It's tcwmaelynn. Donations are always appreciated. They are never required. I want to thank you guys for coming today. Don't forget the music for today is coming from Supbo. So don't forget to give him a thanks by going and giving him a sub. And the video that we are using to learn from today is from Real History on YouTube. So I kind of just stole it from them, so we can give them a like and a sub too. That way, we can stay friendly, because they are a wonderful channel with a lot of information.
And Hoover said, "I can do the job, but I won't do the job if I have got to answer to anyone else but you."
At the age of 30, Hoover becomes director of the FBI, a position he will hold for 48 years until his death.
Hoover decided to make the Bureau of Investigation not only a perfect organization as far as the legal aspects were concerned, but he wanted to make it a glamorous organization where that agents would want to join.
He was a famous trumpet man from out Chicago way. He had a boogie style that no one else could play.
He was the top man of his class, but then his number came up, and he was no better than.
He's in the army now. They made him blow a bugle for his Uncle Sam. It really brought him down because he couldn't jam. The captain seemed to understand, because the next day the cap went out and drafted a band, and now the company drums when he played Revolution.
He decided to centralize the rudimentary taking of fingerprint identification. So what Hoover did was say, all of you, let's put all the fingerprints in one spot. I'll give you total access to anything you need, and at least we'll all have access to everything that we know, all at the same point.
Using these new methods, Hoover will eventually accumulate files on more than 150 million Americans.
Think about that. Hoover accumulated 150 million files on American citizens. So crazy. But he really was instrumental in, combining, doing a joint force across America to catch these gangsters, these mobsters, or Robin Hoods, depending on which way you want to think about it.
At FBI headquarters, files are held on every criminal, outlaw, and suspect in the country. A new, extremely powerful and efficient agency is being created. Dillinger and his gang have yet to realize this.
Oh, no, there's no sun up in the sky. Stormy weather.
After he had robbed so many banks during 1933, Dillinger and his gang wanted to take a vacation, and this is where things went horribly awry for the gang.
Gloom and misery everywhere. Stormy weather. Can't get my...
Initially, they went down to Daytona Beach in Florida, where they were for New Year's Eve. They went down and took in some dog races in Miami. The great love of Dillinger's life was Billy Frechette. They clearly connected. They were two kind of Depression-era refugees who really had nowhere to go and nothing to do but take care of each other.
The FBI files reveal the important role played by the gangsters' women in this era.
The role of women in the war on crime.
Yeah, so now we're getting into the, women who got into these mobs and dated these mobsters and gangsters, and why. They were tired of the way things were. They were jobless. They had lost everything. They're starving. And here comes this guy who's got it all. He can get a quick buck. He can take care of you. He can make sure you get breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and things on, your pretty little clothes and whatever your little heart desired. Hey, cousin, thank you for stopping by. And so, yeah. But we're going to remove this from the stage. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull up these pictures that Barb sent to me. They're totally cool. So this is his car. That's his car. And, it's in the museum in Indiana. I have to really look and see which one it is, but that was one of his cars that he drove. Oh, you're welcome, cuz. Of course. Of course. Did get hurt too. So that's pretty cool. And then there's a map behind it of places that he, I don't know what that is. So then we're going to go ahead and remove this one. Exit all that. So that's pretty cool. Now this next picture tells us a little bit more information. It's a little thing. So here's an excerpt about John Dillinger. what they said about him. Of course, we're going to get into all of this information. It's a okay, so this is the National Museum of Crime and Punishment. Okay, so that's where this is. So, yeah, and they purchased the car. Let's see here, what does it say? Okay, so this is the car he used until April 7th in 1990 or 1940. Gravy or 80. 1934, when he and his brother Hubert crashed. Oh, they crashed this car into. Oh, we're gonna hear about that too. Into the field. So very interesting. That was pretty cool. Thank you, Barb. I like those pictures. I'm gonna keep them. So now we're gonna go ahead and get back to the story and hear about what the women in the Depression, what they were going through. And this will give you more of an idea of why they would be attracted to men like John Dillinger. Of course, that doesn't explain women today, but
Work. Imagine their powerlessness and their poverty. Well, imagine a woman for whom in those days it was much more difficult to find a job. You found a whole legion of women during the Great Depression who were more than willing to inhabit the bed of a bank robber if he took care of them, basically.
Here is the story about little Joe Carew and all the things he'd done for his gal named Lou. When Lou said, Joey, I want diamonds galore, he rounded up the gang and robbed a jewelry store.
Women like, I believe, John Dillinger's girlfriend, a simple soul, a hat check girl, basically, who didn't ask too many questions as long as John Dillinger took care of her. You also found women like Ma Parker, who was the mother to any number of criminal bank robbers, who was more than happy to just go along with it because the alternative to them was abject poverty, living it, as Ma Barker did, in a tar paper shack.
Shoot him, Herman! Shoot him, Herman!
And then you had women like Bonnie Parker, who was Clyde Barrow's girlfriend, who I find far less sympathetic because she could have continued working as a babysitter or a waitress, but she was just bored. It wasn't so much poverty. She wanted excitement. In her diary, she wrote things like, Tuesday, nothing happened. Why won't something happen? She read movie magazines and gangster magazines and wanted her life to be exciting. So there were those women too. Poverty drove a lot of women into the beds of gangsters, but there are always going to be people like Bonnie Parker who frankly did it for the excitement.
At the beginning of 1934, Dillinger and his gang take just a few days vacation. Very soon, they're back robbing banks again.
When they got tired of Florida, they decided they go out west. They go to Arizona, to Tucson. So they all went separately. Dillinger actually went back via Chicago, where he stupidly tried to rob a bank with one other person. And during that robbery in Chicago, killed the police detective, the one confirmed murder that Dillinger clearly is guilty of. Afterwards, he and Billy Frechette headed out Route 66 through Chicago, through St. Louis, to Tucson. And unfortunately, in Tucson, members of his gang were recognized by the local police, not the FBI, the local police. And the local police arrested them one by one. Pete Pierpont, Charles Megley, each of them. And finally, they took in Dillinger. And none of them, Dillinger, any of his pals, could believe they'd been arrested by a bunch of local yokels. And of course, J. Edgar Hoover was beside himself in anger because if Dillinger was to be arrested, it should be by the FBI. But no. And they then extradited John Dillinger back to the state of Indiana to stand trial for the.
Yeah, Hoover was real big mad about that. He was really, really mad. He was like, no, we should, we did it. We did all the work. We should have the arrest. But, they didn't have the power to arrest back then.
The murder of this police detective. And it was really there that some of the greatest exploits, some of the greatest moments of Dillinger's criminal career took place. Once Dillinger is returned to the state of Indiana in January.
I'm not sure. That'd be something to look up. I like to take notes, especially when I have questions. So the Dillinger. Pew pew. Where did it get its name? That'd be interesting to find out.
Very early February of 1934, he is put in the jail at Crown Point, and it's an absolute mob scene when they take him from the airport to the jail. People lining the roads wanting to get a look at this master criminal, more famous than Al Capone now. And they ultimately, when they get him to the jail with flashlights popping and people yelling, "Johnny, Johnny," and all the reporters.
We'll be doing more of these. I plan on doing one about a American mobster a week. So, yeah, I think this is going to be fun. I'm having a great time today. That I'm actually really enjoying it today. Glad I forced myself to do this. All right, we're going to roll tape.
A crowd into the jail, and there's this famous, in fact, one of the most famous photographs of an American criminal ever was when Dillinger put his arm on the shoulder of the local prosecutor and answered all the reporters' questions with a smile on his face, easygoing. He was nothing like a criminal. He seemed, to the eyes of millions of Americans who saw him in newsreel footage of this moment, of these interviews, he seemed like just another farm boy. He didn't deny that he robbed banks. He didn't deny that he'd broken his friends out of prison. He said basically anybody would have done it for their friends. He didn't seem dirty or threatening at all. And so to an America, to a country that was so angry at the banks, that wanted the banks hurt, and Dillinger was doing that, he didn't seem to be like such a bad fellow at all. So that interview, the interviews that he did at Crown Point really took...
Actually, cuz there are both. There's a pew-pew called the Dillinger and a pew-pew called the Dillinger. Tell him, have him watch too. Be a great time for you and him. Right? But yeah, so a little history lesson here. The Dillinger gun, pew-pew, specifically the M1911A1 Dillinger, gets its name from the notorious 1930s bank robber John Dillinger. It is a modified fully automatic 4.45, or 38 super pistol, featured as a Thomas machine pew-pew foregrip, a compactor, a compensator, and an extended magazine mimicking weapons carried by Dillinger. It is associated with John Dillinger. It's a specific modified, highly capacity 1911 with a Thompson-style foregrip, often chambered in a 38 Super or 45 ACP. Yes, you were right. It's named after him because it resembles the gear he used. John Dillinger was heavily associated with stolen weaponry, including various Thomas machine guns, pew-pews, and customs. The misconception, the Dillinger pistol mentioned above is distinct from the Dillinger. I can never say that. Which is a small single shot or a pocket pistol, which I used to have. No, YouTube does not like the G word at all. So yeah, we have to be careful on what we say. All right, so let's see. Well, you know what? I don't know if I'll get in trouble for showing these pictures. Thinking of which, yeah. So we're not going to show the pictures only because I might get in trouble and I don't want that. But yeah, they're two different pew-pews. So there is a Dillinger, and the Dillinger is named after John Dillinger, who was extremely charismatic.
Dillinger out of the mold of just a criminal to a national figure and an international figure. After this, he's being written about in the papers in London, in Paris, in Frankfurt, in Hamburg, everywhere. He really becomes the world's most famous criminal.
One thing that irritated J. Edgar Hoover was hearing about bank robberies in this country. There, at the time, bank robberies was the easiest way for someone to get access to cash.
It was a war. And like in any war, there were legends, glorifying heroes and villains alike.
Yeah, all my buddies wanted to be firemen or farmers or policemen. Not me. I just want to steal people's money.
Gangsters from Chicago were legendary. They not only were very successful, they were very popular. The fact that there was somebody named Pretty Boy Floyd and Machine Gun Kelly drove Hoover up a wall. He saw children emulating these gangsters, these bad guys. And he was all about straight up righteous, and decided to go after.
Barbara showed the pictures. Welcome back. Thank you so much. I'm keeping those. Those are so totally cool. Thank you for sending them. He definitely had his choice of pick of chicks. That's for sure. He definitely did. All right, we're gonna get back to this. A few more minutes. Only got a few more minutes of the arrest left, and then we're gonna talk some more.
To them with a vengeance, and did. He put all the efforts of the Bureau of Investigation to apprehending these people, and more than that, he turned it into a publicity campaign.
Another part of his genius, and I don't hesitate in using the word, is that Hoover understood that he was doing battle he was doing battle not only in the battlefield of guns and bullets, but of ideas and images. Hoover and the FBI were very, very effective in elevating the image of the FBI agent, both in terms of J. Edgar Hoover himself and later one of his top agents, Melvin Purvis, as clean-cut, effective men you can trust, men you'd have your daughter's date. And that's basically who FBI agents were, as a matter of fact. They were men cut out of the same cloth as Hoover. Well-educated white men, always, very few Jews, who worked tirelessly to bring in criminals. That really was not an overstatement. The FBI was full of eager, ardent young men who perhaps couldn't find any other type of job at the moment, who were thrown into the war on crime, really without knowing too much about how to do it yet.
Oh my gosh, I am totally stealing that. Oh my gosh, yes, I am totally stealing that. Oh my God, no. That is too funny. I see that, but it's too funny. All right. We're good. Oh yeah. Oh gosh, yes, I do. I will. I'll go back and clip that so I can. Good idea.
The G-Men. This is a Bureau of Scientific Crime Detection. New, modern, up to the minute, in action day and night. The FBI never sleeps. The G-Men have become a legend.
On the covers of magazines and on the front pages of the newspapers, G-Men became a thing to be reckoned with. You didn't want to fool with a G-Man because a G-Man was even more romantic and successful than the gangsters. And one after one, these gangsters fell and were apprehended. It was extraordinary because throughout the country, people were afraid and enamored of these G-Men. And it's because of J. Edgar Hoover that they became heroes. And they started to show up in movies. No longer was the bad guy the one to win at the end. It was the G-Man who won at the end of the day and literally did put this country on the path of law and order in a major way.
I'll kill you!
While Hoover's search for the gangsters intensifies, Dillinger pulls off his most spectacular exploit to date by escaping from Crow Point County Jail. Movie news of the exploit covers the whole story to the delight of the American public.
In spite of all this guard, he escaped once more using the sheriff's car. By driving the stolen car across the Indiana state line to Chicago, he violated a federal law for the first time, and that put the G-Men on his trail.
Only 4 days after his escape, Dillinger resumes his criminal activities. Day by day, the Dillinger legend grows. It is rumored that he pretends to sell alarm systems to the victims when he is planning a robbery. A story even circulates about how he and his gang pass themselves off as a movie crew on location to a publicity-hungry bank in Ohio.
Yeah. So that is crazy of all the stuff that he did. I mean, and he kept escaping. No, not that time. Wait, no, I do have it though. I do. This is the time where, okay, that escape right there, he is escaped by pretending, with somehow he got a gun. So we're going to get into that in just actually a second. Now he, when they escaped, or when he was arrested in Tucson, Arizona, sorry, where they were, and they were sent back to Indiana. The jail boasted how they were escape-proof, but they added more guards just to be on the safe side. But yet on March 3rd of 1934, John escaped with 15 other prisoners, all with Johnson was somehow able to get a gun or a pistol, and he was able to just walk out of there. Yeah. Well, that is one of the stories. He was able to just walk out of there with 15 other people without firing at all. Now, like you were just saying, Jenny Lynn, during the morning exercise on the second floor, he stopped his workout and produced a wooden, or some people, it's split 50-50. Some say it was fake and some say it was real. And that is still in question to this day, but I like the story that it was fake, because I mean, all he had to do was say, hey, I got this, I'm leaving with 15 of my closest friends, and he did. Now on March 16th of so this is in March 3rd of 1934. Remember, he had just started robbing banks June 21st of 1933, the day before his birthday. Right. Yeah, they were. The day before his birthday was his very first bank robbery. He hasn't even been robbing banks for a year yet. And he's already got this reputation for violence. Now, Hubert Youngblood was one of the prisoners who escaped with him, with John. But he was caught, he was shot, and he was unalived by the police. But before he passed away, he told the police that John was in Port Huron. His birthday is June 22nd. He was born June 22nd, 1903. And his first bank robbery was June 21st, 1933. So now we're in March of 1934. So all of this is happening within a year. Within a year. So her. Oh, it's 2 days after mine. I believe it. I remember us. Yeah, we talked about it in yeah, that is funny. That is very funny. We were talking about it in Discord one day. Mine's the 20th. Danny's is the 21st. Yours and Janine's are the 22nd. It's crazy. We have a lot of June birthdays in that week. Hubert told the police that John was in Port Huron, which John never went to, was never there. So, but the police were like, oh yeah, we got it. It is only 2 days before. And they went to Port Huron and found nothing because John was never there. Now, after the escape, Billy and John did reunite, and then they went to and rented an apartment. Yeah, she does. Yes, she does. Exactly, because you're birthday twins. Now, Billy and John, they reunited and they rented an apartment at Santa Monica Apartments in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. They stayed there for only 15 days. And while they were there, John met up with Hamilton, his friend Hamilton, and they organized a new Dillinger gang. And this gang had Babyface Nelson, Homer Van Meter, Tommy Carroll, and Eddie Green. And 3 days after he escaped, 3 to 4 days after he escaped, Crown Point, the new gang that he was making, started robbing banks together. On March 20th, 1934, John and Billy relocated to the Lincoln Court Apartments, still in Twin Cities, Minnesota. And March 30th of 1934, the landlord of the Lincoln Court Apartments was like, something's not right with these people in this apartment. And so she informed the FBI of what was going on there, starting the surveillance of the apartments. Now we're going to hear a little bit more about Babyface. Yeah, we're going to hear about Babyface, and then we're going to talk about what happened at these apartments during the stakeout.
It wasn't really until after the jailbreak, that J. Edgar Hoover told his top agent, Melvin Purvis, who was a young man, 29, with not a lot of law enforcement experience, that he wanted him to bring in John Dillinger. And in those early weeks after Crown Point, Purvis and the FBI found that, saying you wanted to bring in John Dillinger was a lot easier than doing it. In fact, Purvis himself knew very little about how to do what he needed to do. When he wanted to put wiretaps on the phones, he literally had to call a lawyer in Washington and ask how to do it. His information was bad. He had very few informants on the streets of Chicago. And so I guess it's no accident that for a solid month, the FBI found no trace of Dillinger. The FBI ultimately found Dillinger entirely by accident. Dillinger, of course, had moved to the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, which was a real haven for bank robbers, kind of an open city, if you will, where he had formed the second Dillinger gang with a character named Babyface Nelson, real name Lester Gillis. And Babyface Nelson was a psychopath. Not to put too fine a point on it, he was a psychopath. He was a character out of the movies, a young man who literally cackled or laughed when he was shooting a Thompson submachine gun up and down a street. Dillinger was a cool character. Didn't want to kill unless his own life was in danger. Babyface Nelson didn't care who killed. In any case, Dillinger and Billy Frechette had rented a room under a fake name in a very nice, lovely neighborhood of St. Paul, and their landlady got suspicious because they came and went at odd hours. They had odd-shaped luggage. And she literally went down to the FBI office in St. Paul and said, I have a bank robber living in my apartment building. And the FBI kind of went, but, she wouldn't leave without being listened to. So the man in charge sent 2 young agents in St. Paul. They went and knocked on the door. Billy Frechette initially said, just a second, my husband's indisposed. And after a few moments, Dillinger didn't come to the door, but his Tommy gun did. The FBI agents ran as fast as they could, and at that time, another member of Dillinger's gang drove up, and there ended up kind of a wild gunfight there in front of the apartment building. As it happened, Dillinger and Billy Frechette managed to get away, but as they were driving away, Dillinger found out that he'd been shot in the leg, apparently by one of his own bullets, a ricochet.
I'm going to do a whole show on Babyface Nelson as because I mean, this is just a small portion of Nelson's criminal activity. Yeah, I think John was unalived in July of 1934. were in March. They didn't know each other for very long. And Babyface has a long history. So he's going to be one of the ones I cover too.
In the wake of Crown Point and St. Paul, Dillinger's fame was higher than it would ever be.
My little girl, you know I love you, and I long for you each day. My little girl, I'm dreaming of you.
And all the pressure, all the focus of finding him fell on Melvin Purvis, the Chicago FBI. And Purvis's fame, as a result, rose in parallel with Dillinger. Purvis enjoyed talking to Purvis. He had an ego. He was a sharp dresser. At least initially, Hoover didn't mind that too much because he liked Purvis a lot. But two things ultimately caused Hoover to sour on Purvis. One was the fact that Purvis was so awful at tracking down Dillinger, as we now know, but the fact that Purvis's fame was growing as high as J. Edgar Hoover's. And while I think Hoover's jealousy can be overstated, I think it's pretty clear it was there. So as Dillinger's fame rose, so did Purvis's. Ultimately, the longer Dillinger was at large, the tensions grew between Purvis and Hoover. And if you go back and read their memorandum, their phone calls, I mean, it's all right there. It's pretty clear that while a lot of people think Hoover was jealous of Purvis, and I think there's probably something to that, I think that can be overstated. The fact was, Purvis, which is a series of blunders, raiding the wrong apartments, letting Dillinger get away. Of course, the famous battle at the Little Bohemia Lodge in north of Wisconsin was just about the straw that broke Hoover's back. The climax, really, the moral and the narrative climax of the entire war on crime is probably.
Yeah. So during the surveillance of that apartment, two of the agents actually went to John and Billy's store. And Billy told them that she wasn't dressed and to come back in 10 minutes. One of the agents went downstairs, one stayed up by the door. The agent that went downstairs actually ran into Homer Van Meter. When they reached the lobby, Homer started shooting at the agents. The agents noticed Homer's vehicle. They knew what it was. They saw what he drove. So they shot out his tire to prevent him from escaping. But he still escaped in a passing coal truck. I mean, these people were quite crafty. And then John, who was upstairs in the apartment, heard the shots going on. And so he began shooting through the door with his Thompson submachine pew-pew. And the agent that was up there waiting to come back in 10 minutes started shooting back. He actually got John in his left calf. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, it's crazy. Just one moment. I'm so sorry. Now, so then what happened was the agent retreated out the front, and so John and Billy retreated out the back, and they escaped. And then went over to Eddie Green's apartment, another gang member. Now, Eddie happened to know a doctor who serviced these unsavory characters. And so they brought the doctor over, or they took John to the doctor. Now, Eddie kept visiting John. Now, this was March 30th. Yeah, around 30th. So so Eddie took John to his doctor friend, and Eddie visited John every single day until he was unalived by the FBI on April 2nd of 1934. John stayed with the doctor until April 4th of 1934. He promised to pay the doctor $500. Unfortunately, he never paid that. After they left the doctor, John and Billy made their way back to Mooresville, Indiana, John's hometown, to see John's father. During their time in Mooresville, John and his brother Hubert were in a car accident. And that car that I brought up, which I'm going to bring it up again. this car in particular, let's stop this. This particular car is darn it, I hit the wrong button. I'm so sorry. Stop. Yeah, that did work. Okay. I learn something new every day. All right, so this is the car that they were driving around in. And Hubert, John's half brother, he fell asleep at the wheel, and they hit another car and they crashed through, a farm and all kinds of stuff, and they escaped, and went back to John's family. Now, while they were in Mooresville, Billy bought a V8 vehicle. And so this was the vehicle they used to escape to Chicago on April 8th of 1934. On April 9th of 1934, John had an appointment at a tavern. They were kind of sketch about it, so Billy, she went in first, and John was waiting in the car outside. Yeah, it's a very pretty car. Very pretty. Yeah, I wouldn't mind having one of them myself. I love them old cars. Now, they were sketched about this meeting at the tavern, so Billy went in first, and John waited in the car outside, the V8. When Billy walked in, she was arrested immediately, but she refused by the FBI, and she refused to give John up. She wouldn't tell them anything about John at all, and they never saw each other again after that. John waited about 10 minutes for Billy to come out. Then he saw some commotion going on, so he took off unnoticed by the FBI. He went over to his friend Homer and John Bread house, to their, and met up with them, and they helped him steal some bulletproof vests from a local police station because they were going to break in and rescue Billy and help her escape imprisonment. During this, after they robbed the police station, they went to Homer's sister's house in Michigan. And at this point, there was a large manhunt underway for John and his gang, starting at Bohemia. So we're going to go over the Battle of Little Bohemia. Go over the Battle of Little Bohemia. It was. And as I go, as we talk a little bit more, you'll see how much in love with Billy John was. He was very much in love with her, and she him. All right, now we're going to listen to the Battle of Little Bohemia and what happened there.
The infamous Battle of Little Bohemia, in which, after a series of bank robberies and escapades, Dillinger and Babyface Nelson and the rest of their gang and girlfriends decided they need a weekend away to kind of get their heads together, plan their next move. And so they gather at a small inn in far, far northern Wisconsin called Little Bohemia. Dillinger and Nelson and his gang kind of took it over for the weekend. The problem was their fame had become so widespread that their faces were on the front of all the newspapers, including the Chicago Tribune, and the inn's owner saw it. The man called Dillinger into his office, showed him his picture in the paper, and said, "You're John Dillinger." Dillinger turned to him and said, "Don't worry, I'm John Dillinger, but I'm not here to hurt you. We just need some quiet time." Well, the man did not worry. He was quite worried. He had his wife, he had extended family who worked there, and basically what happened was members of his family called the FBI in Chicago, put forward directly to Melvin Purvis, who put together a team to go to Little Bohemia.
And they were on vacation. Hey, girl, thank you for swinging by. And I'm glad you're awake now. We're talking about John Dillinger. So imagine you go on vacation with a couple of your friends. You have no idea that the FBI is like mounting up, and they're like, "Let's go." They're out there eating barbecue and jumping in the pools, probably sitting in some hot tubs. They have their girlfriends. Let's see what happens.
So on a cold Sunday afternoon in April of 1934, you get 24 FBI agents led by Melvin Purvis descending by automobile and airplane from Chicago and St. Paul, because they are fairly confident they have John Dillinger and Babyface Nelson holed up in this little inn. At this point, FBI agents had been carrying guns for basically 6 or 9 months. Very few of them not only knew how to use guns, but had ever fired a gun at someone. And here they were going to be taking on the nation's leading gangsters who had Thompson submachine guns. Unfortunately, the moment they do that, there's some dogs outside that begin barking. So Dillinger sees, oh my goodness, the FBI is coming after me. Far worse, it's very dark. This is the North Woods of Wisconsin. And 3 men who had been drinking there in the bar that night jump into their car, and as the FBI rushes up, dogs begin barking. Suddenly this car, the radio blaring, can't hear anything, can't hear anybody saying stop. 3 men in this car suddenly start turning down this long driveway, going directly toward the FBI. Purvis, all his men are yelling, stop, FBI, stop, FBI. And the FBI shoots this car to pieces. They kill one of the men, they badly injure two others, at which point, Dillinger, because of this sideshow, Dillinger and Babyface Nelson and all the rest are able to jump out the back of the inn, and in the woods they all become scattered. Some of them, Babyface Nelson, exchange gunfire with FBI agents, but they get away. Dillinger and 2 others manage to get to another nearby inn where they steal a car and get away. Babyface Nelson, as luck would have it, stumbles onto a house about a mile away, where a number of FBI agents then show up looking for a telephone, looking for a car, looking for help. They don't know what's going on. And they drive up, and who's standing there in the driveway? Babyface Nelson, who immediately takes them for what they are, FBI agents. Now he opens up on their car. And then Babyface Nelson takes their car and gets away. And by the time dawn rose, you had a number of men killed. John Dillinger and Babyface Nelson had all disappeared. Melvin Purvis had gone from being fairly well thought of to suddenly the stupidest, the dumbest law enforcement agent in the country. I mean, most of America didn't know what the FBI was. The first time a lot of Americans had ever heard of it was, oh, they're the idiots who let Dillinger get away at Little Bohemia.
Yeah. Crazy, right? And then they escaped. The FBI let them escape out the back. So after which a large manhunt was underway for John Dillinger and his gang. But John never went that far away. He went back to Chicago. Back to Chicago. You would think man would learn, but no, he didn't. He went there under his alias, Jimmy Lawrence, who was just a petty criminal from Wisconsin, who just happened to look like John Dillinger. Now, while he was in Chicago, he met up with a plastic surgeon. And so during his first surgery with the surgeon, he had some moles removed from his forehead, right above his right eye. He had his left eye fixed. There was something wrong with it. It was droopy, and he had that fixed. He had some scars removed. He had this little depression in his nose. He had that filled in. And also he got rid of his... yeah, I wonder too. I wonder too. But I mean, it made Calvin or the FBI agent made him hate it, made him look retarded, made him look stupid. So if it was a plan, it wasn't a good one. He also had his dimples removed. And that was on May 28th of 1934. He went back to the surgeon on June 3rd, 1934 with Homer. They went and had their fingerprints removed. He did it with hydrochloric acid. I read about it, what he did. Very gross. Oh. And then Homer had some facial work done as well to change his looks, so he wasn't as easily recognized. Babyface did come to them during the procedure, and he talked with both Homer and John, and they planned future crimes. Now, after that was very smart. That was very smart to actually get the plastic surgery and the fingertips removed. I don't know if that worked, or the fingerprints. I don't know if that worked, but hey. Now, during this time, while he was there, he met with a woman named Polly Hamilton. They met in June of 1934, so he was recovering from all his plastic surgeries. He was drawn to Polly because she looked just like Billy. And Polly and him dated until she passed away. Now, after Little Bohemia, as you can imagine, there was a huge manhunt out for John Dillinger. During this time, this getting plastic surgery is what John Dillinger was doing. Let's hear what the FBI were doing.
At that point, it was very clear Hoover was just about on the verge of firing Purvis. And then the actual straw that broke the camel's back was when the FBI had Babyface Nelson's wife under surveillance.
Purvis. That's the FBI agent. Purvis.
And somehow, although Purvis was personally responsible for the surveillance, Babyface Nelson managed to go to this woman's house in the middle of Chicago and spirit her away to go robbing banks with him, right under Melvin Purvis's nose. That Hoover didn't fire Purvis, but he sent in one of his own men from Washington, a desk man named Sam Cowley, to take charge of the manhunt for John Dillinger. After a little while,
he couldn't do the actual hard stuff, He couldn't do the dirty work. He had to send somebody else. That was the head of our FBI, founder of our FBI.
Bohemia, Dillinger's fame had never been higher. He is on the front pages of national newspapers and international newspapers every day. People think they see him in Canada, in California, on a ship to London, everywhere. And as a result of his fame, the rest of the American press suddenly starts writing about other bank robbers and start wanting to elevate them toward Dillinger's level of fame. And one of those was Bonnie and Clyde.
I love Bonnie and Clyde. I am going to do a whole show on Bonnie and Clyde. I will dress up in my Bonnie costume. My husband and I one year, but we used to do a family dress when the little one was still trick-or-treating with us. And one year we dressed up as Bonnie and Clyde, and little one was a SWAT team member. So that was really cool. I love that. I love that year. So I am definitely doing a Bonnie and Clyde episode because everybody has their favorite superhero and everybody has their favorite villain. And my favorite villain is Bonnie Parker. So it's going to be a fun episode. But they were robbing banks around this time too. So.
John Dillinger was a big-time criminal who robbed big-time banks. Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker were nobodies from Dallas who mostly bumped off drugstores and filling stations and an occasional bank if they could. But, as luck would have it, they were killed in May 1934 by a posse in Northwest is their deaths. But as a result, really, because of Dillinger's fame, you get fame that gravitates toward nobodies like Bonnie and Clyde, as well as people like Pretty Boy Floyd, Babyface Nelson, Machine Gun Kelly, and others whose names we still know today. In the spring of 34, Billy Frechette got arrested by Melvin Purvis, of all people, one of the few people Purvis actually managed to arrest. And Dillinger was absolutely stricken, just beside himself, in tears, watching her be arrested because he was actually there. In fact, while you can say Purvis was brilliant for arresting her, it would have been a little bit smarter if he realized Dillinger was parked around the corner. After that, Dillinger was just kind of paralyzed with grief. He wanted to storm the jail and free her. And only when his buddies finally convinced him that this would be ridiculous did he give up on that. During this period, he finally kind of constructed a new hideout for himself with a woman who was had run a whorehouse in northern Indiana for years, named Anna Sage.
Can't turn a hoe into a housewife. Polly had quite a history. She was really good friends with Anna. So turned out not to be such a good idea to date Polly, but a man's got to be a man, I guess.
The story of Dillinger's demise, like all the events in this story, happens incredibly fast. It happens in 24 hours, as a matter of fact. Dillinger is staying in the apartment of Anna Sage. She happens to be a Romanian immigrant, and she's about to be deported. And so she approaches the FBI and tries to cut a deal that she can stay in the country because she is the one person in the world who knows where John Dillinger is staying. She says basically that she and her girlfriend Polly Hamilton and John Dillinger are going to go to a movie the next night.
Yeah, it was all self-serving. But I have to say, in this story, karma really took effect a lot.
So the next day, all the FBI men, every FBI man in Chicago gathers in the downtown office of the FBI. It's hot. It's 95. It's 98. It's 100 degrees. And these men sit there all day in their suit jackets, waiting for the call. Where is this woman? Is this woman for real? I don't think she's for real. She's another kook, like the dozens of other kooks we've had before. And finally, in the early evening, she calls. And she says that she and Polly Hamilton and John Dillinger are going to be at the Biograph Theater, where there's a movie called Manhattan Melodrama. Melvin Purvis and a dozen FBI men are sitting directly in front.
I am going to have to look up that movie. I want.
Polly Hamilton with Anna Sage in her famous orange, and they go into the movie theater. There are 24 FBI agents out there. There's some Indiana police. There are Chicago cops, and they wait. They wait for 2 hours. Dillinger finally emerges around 10:30. Purvis is standing in front of the box office, and he is to give a signal. He's to light a cigar when he sees Dillinger come out, and that's when everybody's supposed to move in. They're not too clear about what they're going to do when they move in, but it's pretty clear that they're going to shoot him. Dillinger walks out. He turns left. Purvis lights his cigar, and nobody sees it. One of them, Charlie Winstead, a Texas FBI agent.
Imagine if you were Purvis. I mean, you're like, you did your signal, and nobody is responding because nobody saw it. Crazy. I'd be like, what the fuck, dude?
Who had come up to Chicago to be put on the case because he was so good with guns, mutters to his friend, that's Dillinger, the one in the hat. They walk behind him 10, 20 feet, and at some point, Dillinger senses it. He turns around. He looks
very scary. Very.
Directly into Charles Winstead's eyes, and he knows it. Four shots are fired. 2 hit Dillinger. One goes into the back of his skull, exit through his eye. Dillinger falls right there at the base of an alley. He's dead within seconds.
They got him outside this motion picture theater. Wild excitement. Dillinger killed by federal agents commanded by Inspector Samuel Cowley, assisted by East Chicago, Indiana police. The belongings of public enemy number 1. 3 men couldn't carry Dillinger's collection of deadly weapons seized at various places. He had this automatic in hand when killed. His fingerprints, the infallible sign. He spent $5,000 to have them altered with acid, but it failed. 300 points of similarity remain. His face made over.
I guess that his plastic surgery on his fingertips did not remove his fingerprints. Now we know.
But the G-men recognized him. The eyes and the shape of his head.
The death of Dillinger marks the end of the reign of the gangsters and the birth of the modern FBI, headed by the now all-powerful J. Edgar Hoover.
There are 3 needs in America today in law enforcement: the elimination of politics from law enforcement, emphasis on efficiency, and cooperation between police agencies. We should all be concerned with but one goal: the eradication of crime. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is as close to you as your nearest telephone. It seeks to be your protector in all matters within its jurisdiction. It belongs to you.
That means, gangsters, you can't get away with it.
Thank you, Real History, for that fabulous video. Yeah, so crazy. And they, at the end, they knew they were not going to arrest him. They knew they weren't arresting him. It was, they knew what they were going to do. And, he got betrayed by a friend of his, somebody he trusted. He thought, but I mean, bitch is going to be a bitch. And, she was self-serving. Her whole life, it was based on her being self-serving. And so her whole thing was trying not to get deported. Newsflash, she got deported. So there were, and yeah, so when that was the end of John Dillinger and the Dillinger gang and the rise and start of the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover. He was really young for it. He was only 20, in his late 20s. I think 29 is what I read. When he started this whole thing and started the G-Men. Yeah. So make sure you go and give Real History a thanks for us, And we're going to end with a song, another song, a different song from my good friend Suppo. This is a new one he just dropped the other day. It's called Stay Awake. And I just really enjoy it. And I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. And please make sure you go and give Suppo a like and a sub for us, because we love our dear friends. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to this video. Again, if you want to send a donation, it's Cash App at tcwmaelynn. Don't got to. I'm still going to show up anyway, because this is where I want to be. I do want to thank everybody for coming today. I very much appreciate you guys for being here, and appreciate my chatters. So thank you so much again. And we're going to end it with
The sun went down like a heavy stone.
I forgot. Yeah, I love this song too. I forgot. Everybody, after the song's over, go over to the Common Sense Investigator. She's doing a fundraiser right now with Mazza for Kelsey Fitzsimmons. So let's go give them our love and support too. Okay? All right, cool beans. Again, I love you. Please go out in the world today with love and peace in your heart. Be beautiful butterflies. And go pollinate everybody's YouTube algorithms. Love y'all.
And left me in this room alone. I've lined the hallway with every lamp to fight the shadows cold and damp. If I close my eyes, the corners move. I've got too many fears to prove. The ceiling fan is a spinning blade, cutting through the plans I made. So I'm drinking the coffee and burning the light, holding my breath just to finish the night. I fall under, I'm out of control. The dark is a hunger that's swallowing whole. Don't drift away, don't let the lids drop. I'm praying for the ticking of the clock to stop. Stay away, stay away, before the morning starts to break. The closet door's an inch ajar, a blacker space than the furthest star. Is that I go to a reaching hand, a silhouette I can't understand. A pulse is a drum against the sheet, a frantic rhythm, a panic beat. I'm counting the shapes that shouldn't be there, tracing the monsters in the empty My eyelids are lean, they're pulling me down into a heavy velvet drown. But sleep is a trap, a silent room where I'm the only one in the gloom. Just one more hour, just one more spark. I'm terrified of what lives in the dark. So I'm drinking the coffee and burning the light, holding my breath just to finish the night. If I fall under, I'm out of control. The dark is a hunger that's swallowing whole. Don't drift away, don't let the lids drop. I'm praying for the ticking of the clock to stop. Stay away, before the morning starts to break. The blue light fades, the shadows retrieve. The sun is a ghost on the edge of the street. I survived the night, I want the warm until the sun goes down once more.